time for an interview that involves some queens who are from the Center for Mapping. This is interesting because people don't really know about this, and they're here to shed some light on it. 22162 is the SMS line. Start with YM254. Don't forget to leave your name and where you're watching us from, because that's the only way we can give you a shout out. I go by the name of Barry Moses, or it's Barry Mo on every social media platform. Yes, let's take it away. Karibuni sana.
Asante.
You can introduce yourselves. The one with the hand up, you can start.
Yeah, I'm Rose Waswa, a remote sensing technician from Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development. I have a background in environmental planning and management. Yeah.
Interesting. Karibu sana. Welcome to Y in the Morning.
Thank you.
All right.
And I'm Lilian Wangui, the thematic lead for agriculture and food security at the Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development. My background, my first degree is in IT, and my master's is in GIS, Geographic Information Systems.
Oh, powerful queens in the studio. If you have any questions, 22162 is the SMS line. Start with YM254. We invite them, we invite them, we invite them in abundance. So karibuni sana.
Thank you.
And this organization, prior to you guys coming here, I'm sorry to say I didn't know about it. Tell us more about the organization first.
Okay. So RCMRD came into being in 1975 under the auspices of the then Organization of African Union. So it comprises of 20 member states, and we are more concentrated on the geospatial aspect, but as well as survey engineering and repair and calibration of surveying equipments. And currently we are also doing training we're doing training on the regional scale, but currently in Kenya we are also doing a diploma for GIS at the for students coming in from secondary high school.
All right. So what is the difference between survey and geospatial technology?
For geospatial technologies, we mostly take advantage of the many satellites. We are already working with the NASA, the National Aeronautical Space Agency, not the local NASA, not the political NASA.
Thank you for clarifying.
So, yeah, and other agencies that are producing information from the satellites. So we take advantage of the satellite imagery to develop products and services. Yes.
But they both involve mapping.
They both involve mapping.
But geospatial at least involves some form of technology and satellites.
Yes.
And survey involves doing it on the ground.
Yes.
All right. Interesting. Is this a government body?
It's an intergovernmental.
Intergovernmental.
Yeah. So it comprises of countries from East and Southern Africa, about 20, all the way from Ethiopia going down to South Africa.
So you have like one coordinator at the top.
Yeah.
And then the hierarchy goes. All right, where does the funding come from?
The member states actually contribute, and they are also involved in decision making through what we call the Governing Council. In each of these member states, we work with the Ministry of Lands. So it would have a different name depending on the country, but the Ministry of Land is where we have our focal points. So these countries provide financial support, but they also are involved in decision making for the center. We only have one center here at Kasarani, but then the countries, the member states are involved, what we call the member states. But those are not our only partners. We also work with other countries, not just the member states, by providing services to them. And we also work with private stakeholders.
All right. Yeah. I'd like to digress a little. You know how in biology we hear the certain species that have not been discovered yet. Are there chunks of land that have not been exploited yet on this planet?
Species?
No, like chunks of land, maybe somewhere that have not been exploited yet, or
land.
Yeah, everything is owned by somebody on this planet right now as we speak.
Yeah, if it's not owned by an individual, it's owned by the government.
Yeah.
The
protected resources.
Yeah.
But we can always explore going to Mars.
That is the next step. I hear they even found out there's some water. There's evidence of water in Mars.
Yes.
So there's hope for those of us who don't have land on Earth.
Yes.
If we don't if we don't destroy our earth to that extent.
All right, and that is the reason we are here today,
Yes.
taking care of our planet.
Yes.
And there's a conference coming up, starting today.
Yep.
Start by telling us the venue first of the conference.
So the conference is known as RIC, the RCMRD International Conference. So it's starting today at the RCMRD offices in Kasarani. It's actually a few meters when you exit from Thika Road on the Kasarani Mwiki Road. The first gate on your left is where we are located.
Right opposite Kasarani Police Station.
Opposite Kasarani Police Station.
This conference, is it a Kenyan one, or is it still a regional thing?
It's a regional conference, and this is the second conference, and it's bringing together, I think, actors from all over the world, and the actors are coming from government, researchers, academic institutions, and policy makers. Yes.
All right. Why this conference and why this particular time? What are some of the reasons? What are some of the topics of discussion in this conference?
So the theme of the conference is space science for sustainable development. So when you look at space science, it has like 3 segments. We have the space aspect, we have the control aspect, we have the user aspect segment. So for the space aspect segment, we are looking at the satellite imagery, the UAVs, the photogrammetry images, and for the control, it's now us. What we do with this information, the processing, the analysis, output generation, products. And then for the user, we are looking at who is using these products that we are developing, who is it helping. So for this particular case, sustainable development, we have 2030 is just like tomorrow when you look at it. The strides that we have made towards the same is we can count, but we are not yet there. So we're looking at an opportunity whereby we are trying to harness all this geospatial information that has been generated, these applications, these strides that have been made, whether it's in the research, in academia, how are we supporting?
Because land is a very important resource anyway when it comes to development and sustainability. So agriculture and food security. All right. When I went to college, I didn't imagine a geospatial engineer was going to be involved in agriculture and food security. How do they blend? How do they come to intertwine?
Honestly, I also didn't think it would take that direction. But what we do is that we translate all these complex information and satellite imagery into actionable products that the governments can use, that organizations working with the grassroots can use for decision making. Maybe to give a few examples, working with the Kenyan government, the Ministry of Agriculture and Irrigation, we have developed a cropland map. So the advantage with geospatial technologies is you're able to look at a bigger scale, but very quickly, efficiently, time saving, cost saving, look at the bigger picture, and even drill down and see, I think, a very high level of detail on what is happening in our land. So we have developed cropland maps, which show the change over time because of climate variability, what has been happening, what has been our response to the changing climate in terms of farming. Are we encroaching the Mau? Are we intensifying production on the land that we're already farming? Are we clearing our forests to do more farming? So trying to create maps that address those questions, and also what is the total area that is under agriculture? And this is actually information that is being used to inform cabinet decisions in the Ministry of Agriculture.
So you're a very important pillar in the Agenda 4.
No. But we are working with the governments. And I think the other one that is important is developing a very robust crop conditions monitoring bulletin. It's actually published every month on the ministry website, kilimo.go.ke. And what we do is that we combine the power of the satellite information with information from the extension officers who we have trained through the government. And when we combine this information, we're able to come up with maps that tell us which areas are we having favorable conditions for maize production, where are we having crop failure, and what is causing these less than favorable conditions. Is it the fall armyworm? I know you've heard, most probably you've heard about the worm that's affecting maize production. Is it flooding? This year we had a lot of rains.
Yes, exactly.
And while in your mind you'd expect a positive implication in agriculture, we had a lot of failure in beans production.
And the loss.
And losses. So we are able to show what is happening, provide really simple maps that show you what is happening in the whole country. What are the drivers to less than favorable conditions? What is the outlook? What does this mean for the production at the end of the season? And what does it mean for the markets? If you're a trader, you're the youth, it means that maybe there'll be a shortage in beans, and this is something that you could, think about supplying. So we are translating this information, this satellite imagery and other data into actionable information and products that are being applied for decision making. Yes.
So your major role is providing the information.
Translating, developing products.
Developing products.
Yeah.
All right.
Bridging that gap between the science and decision making.
And decision making.
Yes.
That is where you come in.
Yes.
You provide the information. So when you map these pieces of land, are you also able to tell like the type of climate that is to be expected in this particular area due to climate has been changing over time, we can tell. So is this something that is predictable as well? When you map, you can tell this place we're going to have this form of this type of climate where we have this amount of rain, this amount of temperatures that are this high and whatnot.
We can't tell what has been happening over time. We can tell that within the country we've seen, and in some areas we've seen an increase of 2 degrees Celsius in terms of temperature. That has a very big implication in agricultural production. The areas where we were doing farming has changed.
When people hear 2 degrees, they say,
it's
just
small.
2 degrees.
That has a major implication. We can look at the last 30 years and tell what has been happening over time in terms of climate. And then you start to look at the future and try to predict what would happen. So yes, that has been done.
Another agenda in the conference is weather and climate, yeah?
Yes.
Yes, you can tell us more about this. And are you working with the meteorological department on this one?
Yes.
Yeah, part of the satellite data that we use has been calibrated by station data. This is from the Met, what they record on the ground. At the same time, when you look at climate variability, the trends that are happening within the rain, if for 5 years you have rain taking place, a certain record amount of rain that is being within the rain that would take 3 months would now take 3 days, and with a huge amount of rain, then that causes flooding. So this is what we are trying to yeah.
All right. So Lilian, Rose.
Yes.
All right. 22162 is the SMS line. Start with YM254. Direct your questions to Lilian and Rose right here from Center of Mapping. All right. Another thing that is coming up is land cover, land use, land cover, and ecosystems. Land use, land cover, and ecosystems. Yes, this is where we find forest encroachment and whatnot.
Yes.
All right. What's your role in this? Because I feel like politics is overshadowing science when it comes to this.
Our role in that has actually we've been supporting the government through the Ministry of Environment to develop land cover maps. We've developed 17 of them, so they can monitor the change over time. Where have we seen a reduction in the forest cover? Where have we, through our interventions like planting trees, seen an improvement? And those maps are already there. It's a project called SLIC. It was a collaboration, so we were one of the partners supporting the development using satellite imagery to develop forest land cover maps, not just forest, but we're also supporting assessment of the water towers. Yes, so trying to drill down to the water towers like the Mau and coming up with detailed maps that show what has been happening over time. Are our reforestation efforts bearing fruits? What is the percentage increase or reduction in the forest cover in these areas? So geared towards conserving our water towers.
So what is like the minimum forest cover in terms or in a percentage that we need as a country?
There can never be enough.
There can never be enough.
There can never be enough.
But right now we have less than
10%.
Less than 10%, which is a very bad thing.
Yes.
And we need to work towards growing that percentage.
Yes.
All right. Amazing. Another thing that is coming up is land management and surveying. And this is where we find people building on riparian land.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear there are a group of people called riparian people now. I don't know who these people are, but yes, land management and surveying. This is another topic of conversation at the conference, and we're having a problem with that so much because buildings are coming up all over the city anyhowly. Some of them are very tall in places they shouldn't be, and the rest of them. Can you shed some more light into this, and what is the way forward? Because I feel like Nairobi is going to be a mess if we don't figure this out.
Yeah, water has to go somewhere. And the best course of water takes is the lowest gradient that is available. Okay. So when we build
the lowest gradient
in terms of altitude.
In English, please, for some.
In altitude, where it's lower, it would flow to it would flow to the region. So when we are building in riparian land, we are kind of creating we'd call impervious surfaces where water cannot like percolate into the ground. So when it gets to that point, it has to, that's where this flooding comes in these particular buildings, because based on the gradient that is there, this is where it would flow.
Do you blame the floods that we had earlier this year on some of these things?
Yeah.
Like building on riparian land and whatnot?
Yes.
Because percolation is not taking place. Like surface infiltration is not taking place.
So we need to be very careful in terms of land management and everything. And you guys come in to provide this data for the. So what I'd like to know, how do you work with the county governments? Because county governments also run a lot when it comes to land management and resource management. Is there a link between you guys and the county?
I'll let Rose talk about the hazard mapping because she's been leading that.
All right.
So working with the county governments, hooray to devolution. It has been a good step on our end. So right now we are developing hazard atlases for ASAL counties, the arid and semi-arid lands, what are considered. There are about 23. We've done from Turkana, we are currently doing Marsabit and Laikipia, but we've done Turkana, Baringo, Tana River, Kilifi. Tana River, where there's so much flooding that is occurring. So what is happening is that we are working with them in sourcing information that they already have, including the locals, what is referred to as participatory mapping. So we are creating hazard atlases, saying this is where the problem is, looking at vulnerability in the sense of looking at how many disasters or hazards do they face. What is the sensitivity, whereby you're looking at how many disease incidences, whether it's crop, livestock, human diseases, and mapping that with adaptive capacity. So all this information, we are doing it with them, training them on how to develop the same. So the first round of atlases has been done. So we are looking at upgrading the same, and this upgrade will take place with within the county government. The beauty of this, like for example, Baringo County, this atlas is being used in the development of the county integrated development plan, contingency plan. So the information that is given there is what is the response in terms of a hazard, who are at risk, and to what magnitude, depending on which hazard that is being posed, and what is the best course of action. Course of action in this case being coping strategy and mitigation. Coping would be the short term, cash transfers, early harvesting, but mitigation would be more trees being planted within areas that would historically be forest, trying to incorporate agroforest in areas where it's possible, looking at the number of livestock within the region. The beauty of this is that the extension officers have this information right now. They have this information.
Courtesy of your organization.
Yep. Because we train. When we train government institution, it's more of a training of trainer aspect, whereby you tell this person what to look for. What to look for. Is it, if there's an outbreak, information is being passed from the local to this extension officer, so they know where to move. Because it's all just geospatially located. And everything is online. And with the expanse in technology right now with a smartphone, this farmer can be able to say, I'm hoping to get this amount of yield based on.
Thank you very much for talking about being online. How can they find you online? Because this information is very important to people out there.
So our website is rcmrd.org, and most of the information would be on the website.
Most of the information is on the website. Yes,
and of course details of how you can access, if there's need to come to our offices, and links to the other site where we have some of the apps, and we have an applications portal. For most of the applications that we've developed, which are free, then they are on the apps portal.
All right. Yeah. So anybody can access this information from whatever part of this country. Especially, it's very beneficial to the farmers out there. Thank you very much. 22162 is our SMS line. Start with YM254. Don't forget to leave your name and where you're watching us from. Direct your questions to Lilian and Rose. Yes, for more info. So there's a story I heard yesterday on the radio that the government only provides 56 million Kenyan shillings for research in the universities, and they're saying it's not enough. What's your take on this?
It's not enough because the youth are the people who we are tasking to develop the technologies and innovative solutions to the problems that we're facing. And I think that's also the goal of this conference, bringing together the youth and, you know, giving them a chance to showcase the innovative technologies and products that they've developed that can be used to address some of the problems that we're facing. But it's also a chance to network and link, provide a chance for policymakers and the researchers to come together and talk about how we can address some of the challenges that are being faced.
I'd like to hear your take on this.
With research, there's a lot of money. Even with individual research, there's so much information that you need to get data, for one. I think if there was a possibility of the government to provide funding in kind, whereby for our case we are offering some of this data, as long as you're a student, we are able to access our data openly. If some of this data that the government holds can be able to be made accessible to the youth, where they can manipulate. It's not about just holding information within the shelves and the databases, making it open access. Not sensitive, of course. We don't want to know who owns this piece of land, but you understand.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about.
Having
which
information
part belongs to the government, which part needs to be forested,
distributed,
and the rest of them. So hashtag RIC 2018, hashtag Space Science for Sustainable Development, hashtag Space Science Touches Lives, hashtag From Space to the Village. All right, kudos to the team that came up with these hashtags, because they sound really cool. So I'm interested in From Space to the Village. This one is the one that got most of my attention. From Space to the Village.
Yes.
Just break this down a little bit.
Okay. Space to Village is actually about translating all the information that we're getting from the satellites in space into actionable information that would have an impact to the village and to the farmer and to the local person living in the smallest unit of administrative unit of
amazing stuff that you are doing out there, Lilian and Rose. So as we come to the end of this, please remind them what is happening at your headquarters in Kasarani today and
for the next 3 days.
For the next 3 days. Yes, please remind them.
Okay, so we are having we are calling it RIC 2018. Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development. That's RCMRD International Conference. So our theme for this year, as we said, is Space Science for Sustainable Development. We are looking at how to use geospatial technology to look at poverty, to end poverty, to end anger, looking at gender, looking at equality in terms of the youth, looking at climate action, what are we doing to promote the same? Whether you talk about deforestation in Mau and how it would affect the water quality at the mouth of the Lake Victoria, that's what you're doing.
Or moving the rivers in Nairobi.
Yeah.
This is a sensitive matter. But
so,
anyway.
So bringing all these policy makers, looking at these applications that are being developed, academic institutions, how to help them, and the strides they have made so far in terms of accessing this geospatial information and utilizing it.
Thank you very much. From today and the next 3 days, who is invited and who is not invited?
All of us are invited.
All of us are invited.
All
we
of
can
us
come
are invited.
to that place and get information.
Yeah.
All right, right opposite Kasarani Police Station.
Yeah.
All right. Please remind them how they can access the information online for those who are out of this county right now.
So we have the website, rcmrd.org, and we have the RIC conference website. It's a RIC.
It's an extension of this.
It's an extension, but most of the information will be available on rcmrd.org.
rcmrd.org.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Your last remarks, Lilian, as we come to the end of this, and please talk to the people, talk to the youth, and just give them something a little bit inspirational to start their morning.
I think that there are a lot of opportunities that the youth can take advantage of.
Just look them straight into the eyes.
I think that there are a lot of opportunities that the youth can take advantage of, and at RCMRD, I think they can look up the Space Challenge. There's the We See STEAM Camp that encourages, it's a mentorship program for women in science, and we have a lot of activities that are involving the youth, and I would encourage them to look at our site and get involved. Yes.
Thank you very much. Your last remarks.
Yeah, I think there's enough information out there for any youth to make it in the geospatial field. As long as you have a smartphone, you're able to access all this information. And it's only, there's a bit of crowdsourcing that we're already utilizing from the youth. So reporting on where something has happened, that's geospatial. So everyone navigating from one area to another, that's geospatial.
That's
so
geospatial.
Anyone can be involved in this.
Even the maps that we use to navigate, that's geospatial.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming through to Y in the Morning. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having us.
You're amazing queens, doing amazing stuff to add on to the development of this country. All right, for more information, head straight to rcmrd.org. And the theme of the conference this year, RIC 2018, hashtag Space Science for Sustainable Development. Space Science touches lives, and from space to the village, my most favorite. This has been another segment of Queen's Wednesday. I go by the name of Barry Moses, or it's Barry Mo on every social media platform, and Hilda Wathithi is coming through with another interview next. You don't want to miss this one because there are models involved.